Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division, and this is going to be an exciting round of racing where we've got a French Grand Prix coming up with the Talent Factory slowly but surely losing their ground to Paradox Sim Racing over the last couple of rounds. They're now clawing that gap down to just 23 points between first and second place. Outplayed Racing, of course, slowly but surely trying to get in the realms as well. A bad race last week saw them lose some ground, though, and Visceral Racing also looking fairly sharp in fourth as well. It is myself, Jota, alongside you once again, alongside James, your usual pairing now for the foreseeable in WRLD. Nice to have you alongside us on this one, James. We're going to be in for a really exciting round. French Grand Prix usually brings some really spicy racing.
We are indeed. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for bearing with us first and foremost. We had the absolute nightmare of nightmares in trying to set up the lobby. We're here now, though. We're about to go on course in towards Q1. And yeah, France, I think, is going to be really interesting in terms of the racing. We normally see some good overtaking. We normally see wheel-to-wheel action around here. Around the outside of turn number 10 could be an overtaking spot. Of course, qualifying as well is going to be quite overcast by the looks of it as well. So that really brings into the realms of possibility of what we might expect in terms of the weather and hopefully what we might expect in terms of good racing. Absolutely.
I mean, plenty of drivers out on the field at the moment now on intermediate tyres. One of those, Shazoo's FRA Arch, just now going through the next turn. In fact, it's not Shazoo, is it? I'll get there in the end eventually with that one because they're both FRA drivers, so I'm getting myself all mixed up on that one. Either way, they're on intermediate tyres, and I think that is just to sort of set the precedent, really. Try and get an understanding of the circuit perhaps with setup, but the conditions are very, very overcast out there. Mixed poor track conditions, going to be quite green out there, even those that decide to go on the dry tyre. Though at the moment, everyone that's on an outlap currently on that intermediate tyre. And I'm actually curious, because it's been a while since I've done any kind of league racing myself personally, but I don't quite understand the benefit of going out there on an intermediate tyre in the dry conditions in Q1. So perhaps, James, you could give us some kind of insight into that one.
Yeah, there's no benefit really to being on a set of inters apart from saving a fresh compound of tyre for the later stages of qualifying, and that'll be probably a set of soft compound of tyre that they're saving up as well. And that really brings about as well that change up in terms of their setup, whether or not, of course, they've got their setups on these intermediates. These intermediates, just for a little bit of a bit of reference point as well, 25 to 30 litres of water they can dispose of every single second. Of course, it is dry, bone dry out on track, and these guys are keeping a dry compound of tyre, of course, later on in qualifying. I think certainly for Q2, certainly for Q3 as well, and hopefully it is going to be something to watch out for as Archer to start up on his lap. He's the first one on that set of intermediate compound tyres who's doing basically an intermediate dry run.
Yeah, currently heading around turns 3 through 5 at the moment. Through the right-hander are 6 at the moment, but the drivers all around the field are obviously going to be looking at their long-term prospects when it comes to racing around this circuit. Of course, lower downforce setups benefit the greatness throughout the second and third sectors, because we expect that the majority of the racing are going to be happening through there. I know of a couple of people that may be racing closer to 0-0 wings around here, which is not the advisable thing to do because it shreds your tyres to bits, especially around a 50% race. One person, though, deciding that he wants to break the mould and go on the dry tyre actually is WOR's Dan Spreen. Dan, actually very lucky to be part of this qualifying. Of course, he ended up having to drive home from work, and unfortunately a later finish at work meant that he nearly missed out, but all the technical issues has actually allowed him to get into qualifying. So WOR will thank the lucky stars that Codemasters were on their side tonight.
Yeah, definitely so. And Dan, I think going and breaking the mold, going on that set of soft compound of tyres, I think realises that he doesn't have pace compared to everyone else in the lobby. It's fantastic to obviously see him go for something different, go on that set of soft compound of tyres. It should be the first representative lap we are seeing out on track tonight, as he really makes a mistake. They're coming through the right hand of turn number 2, and then on course down towards turn number 3. But you can already tell he's backed off the lap at this stage. Rusty 34.4, 35.4 from Arch there in second. They are on intermediate compound of tyres, but of course it is going to be much changeable. The later stages of Q1 is going to be the real telling point around this track, as Dan Spreen, of course, on this invalid lap comes down now the Mistral straight.
Yes, and just to keep an eye out on NRX's Levi at the moment, he's just going through the next selection of corners in that third sector, where we see a lot of racing happening around turn 12. If they go side by side all the way through turn 10, then 11. Here he chucks the car though into the final couple of corners at turn 14 and then turn 15. And of course on that intermediate tyre, we're not expecting anything massively representative. 34.4 set by his teammate, leading those of the intermediate tyres and the only drivers set on the intermediate so far. Levi will come across the line, will he be able to improve? He will be able to get get close to his teammate by around about 0.3 of a second. Of course, very, very irrespective lap times at the moment. We do have another driver, though, that's decided he wants to have another go on that soft tyre, and it's actually PSR's Nick. Now, PSR, on the back of finally, some good form for Paradox Sim Racing, because they are really eating through the deficit that they have to Talent Factory. And now Talent Factory, who thought they could be on for a really good win in this tournament, are suddenly having to look really over their shoulders here, because with Nick and Cypher tonight, they're fielding some incredibly quick drivers up PSR.
Yeah, they are indeed. And 23 points, of course, the disadvantage for PSR behind Talent Factory. Talent Factory had a race to forget last week, honestly. And from a PSR perspective, they had that 1-2, of course, in Console Tier 1, followed up again with a 1-2 last week in Hungary. And whether or not they'll be hungry for success here in France remains to be seen, as Nick comes through the right-hander of turn number 2, and then to the right-hander of turn number 3. McCabe Sam is also on an outlap at this stage, along with M-Racer. They're both on a set of soft compounder tyres as well, so we are beginning to see drivers now going out on that set of soft compounder tyre. Nick through the first sector, not looking too bad, 22.2, exactly where you expect to be. We should be seeing 21.7s, 21.8s towards Q3. Luke Etheridge, by the way, the GOAT of WOR PC Tier 1 there in the chat. Good evening to you. Crispy saying he's just had chicken stew and not so hungry. I had arrabbiata a little bit early on, and I'm not hungry either, but they're coming to the chicane north at turns 8 and 9 on the hill and towards turn number 10. Hasn't looked a bad lap at all. He's very neat indeed on this run. Coming through this middle sector split, 49.9, exactly where you expect to be. And of course, track evolution is going to be a thing around this track, and we should see times dip under, probably around the 128, 127 mark.
Yeah, a couple of goats in the chat, actually. Nice to have Luke Etheridge in the chat as well. Nice to have you alongside us for this one, Luke. And then goat of the strategy in Crispy as well, of course, after that immense Hungary strategy call, to be fair, for PSR, really extending their stint in what we thought could have been a tyre blowout scenario, ended up turning out trumps for PSR as they now come through the final corner. Does PSR Nick looking to put that DRS open and apply himself towards the line. We are expecting one of the faster laps coming in. Rusty set his lap on the intermediate, so it will be faster, and by a long way, of course, with that 29.950. Nick sets the initial precedent. We do have one of the Alfa Romeos to come across the line, though. Dan Spreen on the soft tyre, actually quite a significant chunk of time down on Nick's, perhaps not a representative lap time on that tyre either. So lap times coming in thick and fast, outlaps coming in thick and fast, including PSR Nick's teammate Scyther on that outlap as well at the moment in that PSR McLaren. He's just coming around the final couple of corners, and this is one thing we're going to be expecting from Scyther, really, isn't it? Because the guy was up and sort of running riot last season and was able to be probably one of the second, maybe definitely at least the second fastest driver on Xbox last season, especially in WOR anyway. And, look at it from that perspective, he's not been able to fully flex the muscle that perhaps you could get from Scythe, of course, with the 3 race limit on all of the drivers. But whenever he's been on show, he's always performed, and that is the consistency I think PSR definitely needed to search for as they try to find their form.
Yeah, he's really given a good impression of himself, and I think a good impression for PSR as well. And Skyler through the first sector, 22 flat, that's exactly the impression that you want to be making. Already 2/10 quicker than his teammate through that first sector. Now down the long Mistral straight, mirroring, of course, the Manicourt straight in France, the former French Grand Prix host. Of course, the last race, I believe, was in 2006. I miss Manicourt, to be honest.
I miss
We
it.
shouldn't really be here if took a pull the card, but Manicourt, brilliant track. You can argue until the cats come home in the comment section about that. Skyler through this middle sector split, 49.8, or 10th up in that middle sector. Not looking like a bad lap at all.
Yeah, not looking too bad at all. I do miss Magny-Cours, actually. I'll be perfectly candid. It's one of my favourite circuits, actually, is Magny-Cours. And I remember watching it back in my old kiddie days, looking at the F2002 running riot around there. And then the F2004, I think one of my favourite laps actually came from, I believe, actually, it was Ralph Schumacher around that circuit as well, if I remember correctly. We'll keep an eye out then on that McLaren of Scyther then as he's coming around into turn number 14, then into 15. Actually, a lower gear than we expect from some, keeping it in third gear so then he can have the traction out of the final corner. Talent Factory's Max coming across the line, 30.0, struggled to get into the lobby earlier on, which led to those technical issues, but he's in here now, and he goes now third fastest as Scyther comes across the line and beats Nick by just a little bit under 0.2 of a second. Good lap actually coming in from Scyther, making it a PSR once again, a 1-2. And Rusty and Levi, worth mentioning about Nexus, by the way, they're last races of this particular session of WORLD because they're on their third and final races, are the pair of them. And Rusty and Levi really need to flex their muscles here. They're definitely the quickest drivers of the team, and currently at the moment in the standings, probably not the representative times or representative place that they're currently in at the moment. Nexus are only in 5th, and they're actually 45 points behind Visceral Racing in 4th. You know, we expected a little bit more from Nexus on their debut season, if you will, on their return to the platform, and now they're fielding their fastest drivers. This is the last hurrah, really, for some big points you'd expect here, surely.
It is the last hurrah, and Rusty, to be honest, on this lap does look very, very neat indeed. A 49.9 in the middle sector. Of course, he's going to be improving on their set of inters, unless he, of course, invalidates coming through the final couple of corners. Now through, I think, Sinye at turn number 11, the flat right-hander, coming through turn number 11, basically mirroring a double right-hander coming through turn number 11. Then in towards left-hander, turn number 12, a Bose. Skydivad on top of Nick in second, Max there in third. Rusty looking good, actually, on this lap. The NRX man has got bigger fish to fry a little bit later on in a couple of weeks' time, because I know a couple of the NOX boys are going to be competing in the F1 Esports Challenges, so congratulations to them for getting through into the Challenges. I believe Rusty and Levi are actually 2 of them. Rusty comes to the line, goes second, 29.8, not a bad lap there at all. Max there is just starting, I think, up on another run. Archer just came across the line to go 5th as well, but we are now beginning to see the times really being set. Namaya has backed off his lap. Yona has also backed off his lap. The Aventus Racing man right down at the back of the field. And the Shazoo man, Shazoo Tom, watch out for him. He does like this track, so I'm going to put him toward the top end of the field from the PS boys.
Cracking second sector coming in, by the way, from TV8's FRA, Stokey, as he's just coming around into the third sector now, and he's looking really, really sharp, actually. That Red Bull is looking particularly grippy, actually, on the rear. The front, though, on the other hand, is a little bit temperamental. Misses Apex ever so slightly going through 12. Here they comes then into 14 and then into 15. We're expecting this Red Bull Honda RPPT engine to power him down the straight with as much brute force as the torquey engine that it is. Heading down that straight with the DRS open, of course, the Red Bull will come across the line and will only go 8th fastest for Team Valor.
Yeah, only going 8th indeed. And Arch there, a tenth and a half quicker than him. Currently in there in 6th position, the Red Bull doing a fantastic job. Dan Screen, I believe, is just coming to the line as well. He might be going as Sky the retires into the pit lane, so that is him done out of the session. Clearly thinks a 29.7 is good enough. I am led to believe that is going to be good enough from him. Tom coming through the middle sector, look purple actually through the middle sector split. The Aston Martin's going out of the way as well. Are both NRX drivers. They are backing off on their final, to go potentially on their final runs. However, I think they're quite safe going into qualifying. Tom coming down through the final couple of corners is actually not on a representative lap, but he will be one to watch out for. Skydivad on top, Rusty in second, Nick in third. Pretty much 2/3 of qualifying gone. I think there's 6 minutes left to go in the session. As McCabe Sam, the VSL man, has just started on a run coming through turn 3.
As I'm hoping, fingers crossed, you should be able to hear me loud and clear. It looks like for some reason they decided to unplug my microphone, and by they I mean me, on that one. But fingers crossed we should be all up and running on that one, as we've got McCabe Sam on a hot lap. Then, of course, for Team Shazoo, as you rightfully point out. Team Shazoo looking, if they can possibly help it anyway, to climb up the rankings themselves here. And I think it is Shazoo. Please tell me it is Shazoo, because if I've not, I've got this terribly wrong. Let me just correct myself on this one, because I have forgotten absolutely everything on this one. It is not Shazoo that represented in the Mercedes. I believe actually it's actually VS. It's PSR, VSR. I don't know. Yeah, we'll go for VSR. We'll say VSR on this occasion. I don't know what's wrong with me. You know what? This week I've been forgetting absolutely everything this week, and I've got. You know what? I actually had to change the password to all of my accounts because I had a universal password that I somehow forgot. I am not joking on that one. Either way, McCabe Sam just coming around into the final couple of corners here at turns number 14 and 15. Important lap coming in then for the VSR team as it comes into that final corner. Again, a lot of drivers missing their apexes, and you can see they just come out wide ever so slightly on that one, and it's the last thing that they need as he comes across the line now, does McCabe Sam, trying to improve on his lap time of a 30.3 in the end, and goes about 31 thousandths of a second faster than Outplayed Racing's Nando, but slower than Shazoo's Orlean. Oh my god, we've got him again, have we? I can't get that name right at any point. James, I'll leave you to correct me on that one.
That's Aurelian, I think you're trying to pronounce.
Aurelian. We'll go with that then.
The Frenchman at his home track, of course, for Shazoo. He's normally quite quick around here as well. Tom, they're down in 20th position. Need to try and get a valid lap time on the board. Same with M-Racer. He with a 150.8. Clearly not good enough on that set of soft compound tyres at the VSR, man. Yona is backed off on a run. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody on a run. Simba Rocks in the first sector is on a run. 22.6, though, was not really representative as Rusty retires, of course, in the pit lane. One of the two NOX boys, of course, who qualified for F1 Esports Challenges on the Xbox side. The other one, of course, being his teammate here tonight in Levi, which is absolutely fantastic. Get to see some experience, of course, out on track, ready for the form that is going to build, of course, towards F1 Esports Challenges, which I believe is around 3 weeks away. So these guys are getting final preparations in, and that is why I'm assuming they have got their final races here tonight as well, with that full preparation going on board. Simba coming through that middle sector, 15th currently, 130.8. We've got Sky the Rusty, Nick, Max and Kian, so both TF boys, both PSL boys retiring out of the session. The real crunch time now comes from the likes of Namaya, the likes of Gray, the likes of Stokey, 12th, 13th and 14th. They haven't done enough so far to get into Q2. They need to try and improve, and this is going to be big time laps coming in. They need to improve and need to go out on the final run.
Well, yellow flag's currently waving for Simba Rocks, actually. It looks like he's out of fuel, so he'll be straight into the pit lane. As it stands, he's just on the brink of being knocked out of qualifying, and he's got one VSR and one Shazoo driver still yet to set representative lap times. Dan Spreen also yet to set a relative lap time that you'd sort of consider to be in the mix here. As Dan Spreen's actually gone on an outlap on an old set of softs, so he's quite keen to at least try and maintain a fresh set of softs. M-Racer doing exactly the same thing. Tom has invalidated his last lap, so this will be potentially his last attempt to try and get around the circuit. And he's actually got to get a little bit of a move on here. He's probably got probably about plus 15 at the moment, so he can take his time perhaps down the straights, but he's going to have to really put his foot down soon and not put himself under too much pressure, as it looks like he's actually having a little bit of a ding-dong potentially with one of the TV8 drivers on that occasion. Either way, we've seen plenty of drivers all deciding that they're retiring from the session. They feel confident enough. One of those drivers, Nehemiah, choosing not to do that. He's on an outlap at the moment as well. Race Roller also looking to improve as well. Actually, good lap time coming in from the SLR driver. SLR obviously coming off of the back of what has been some pretty poor performances since they got that surprise podium over in Belgium, which seems like such an age ago now, doesn't it? They're looking to try and find the pace, try and really get in there if they can help it at this one. And it looks to me as if now he's on a lap now on an old set of softs once again. If he can find at least a couple of tenths, he'll be able to get it into the top 10. And he really is pushing, actually. He's managed to just find the limits as he goes through into turn 3.
He does indeed. 22.3 in the first sector. But
it's gone.
There coming out of turn number 5, and he's gone fully round. And that is not great from the SLR man's perspective. There is a Alfa Romeo, I think, just coming through. That was Dan Spreen, I think, in the background shot coming through the first sector split. He's 2.5 tenths up to Dan Spreen. 130.827 is the miracle time that people have got to try and get. Dan, more than capable of doing a 130.8, I think, on his day. M-Racer and Tom, they're going to be comfortably, if they don't invalidate, into Q2. But Simba retiring, Ray retiring, they are on literally the borderline in terms of getting through and qualifying. Are these guys really going to find much time? Dan up in the middle sector, 50.5, 7 tenths per second improving. He backed up in this final sector as well. So the WOR man will be one of the first to come across the line. I think Arch and Stokey haven't improved on their times in the M4F array. They're comfortably through in 10th and 12th position. However, time Dan Spreen, M-Racer and Tom, as Dan runs right there, coming through turn number 10 at Bolse, and then in towards 10-14 at Lack, and in towards 10-15 at Pond. Looking really good. He needs to be committed, though, coming out through the final corner. The Alfa Romeo now on the run to the line. A 130.827 is the lap time to beat. I think he's going to fall short. It's way short in the end, but it's a 131.4 at the end of the day for Dan Spreen. M-Racer clearly improving, 49.9. He looks like he's comfortably getting through. Tom has invalidated to Shazoo.
The back.
The man that I said could be towards the top end of the field for the PS boys is going to be down in 20th position as M-Racer goes 6th with a 130.1. And Tyne as well is improving. He has to beat Simba Rocks on the run to the line. And he does. He goes 16th, but it's not enough to get through to Q2. So out of Q2, both Juventus guys in Tyne and Yona. Simba Rocks splitting the pair there in 17th. Dan Spreen in 19th. And perhaps arguably the shock, I think, of the session. Tom out of the session. That's what happens when you try and put unwarranted pressure on him.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a call, that, actually, from Tom. He's left it a little bit too late to get out there and not even try, try and even set a conservative lap time on that occasion. But Shizou Tom is out of qualifying, and as you rightfully point out, 2 Juventus drivers, 1 SLR, 1 WOR, and 1 Shizou driver in a shock knockout on that one. But it's at what expense it is for Shizou Tom is a game for outplayed racing. Ray managed to get in ever so slightly as well, actually, just by a little bit over 1.13 seconds on that one. Both TV8 drivers also through as well, down in 13th and 11th. Race Roller splitting the pair of them, and Nando starting out the top 10. But as it stands so far, it is looking very good for PSR at the moment, though, of course. Don't forget about Nexus Ever. Rusty, ever the man in form at the moment and one of the fastest on the platform, splitting the pair of them on the front row as we go into qualifying 2. Max and Kian, though, Talent Factory, of course, always breathing down their necks as they try to continue and try and find the form that they had at the beginning of this season. We will continue on with our coverage of this French Grand Prix in just a few short moments after this very short break. So then, situation report once again as we take a quick look at those standings. 179 for Talent Factory and Paradox Sim Racing leading towards the front on 156. Talent Factory slowly putting the pressure on the front pairing at PSR, but as it stands at the moment, actually, the biggest pressure is coming from the man in the form at the moment at Nexus in 5th place. VSR a little bit down the order at the moment. One thing is for certain, as it stands, we have lost out on Juventus, 7th place team, all the way out of Q1 already. Shocking stuff for them, but I think the biggest shock of all, as you rightfully point out, Shizou losing one of their drivers. Tom was not able to get a lap time on the board, James.
Definitely not, and as I say, I put the bold prediction out saying he was going to be one of the top guys for PS, and look what he's repaid me with. Down in 20th position, out of qualifying. A real shame, I think, from Tom. He needs to now focus on the race. He's got a good, half an hour, basically, to try and get mentally focused once again and refocus, basically, for that qualifying session. The first guy's all right on track. It's still very overcast as well out on track, so the track evolution is not going to be as good as what we might see potentially for Q3. However, the first man out on track is the NRX man of Rusty, who qualified, of course, in 2nd in Q1. The F1 Esports Challengers, or the future F1 Esports Challengers man, of course, for NRX there in 5th currently. He's the first man out on a lap. The Aston Martin will be looking to try and get a very good lap time on the board. But this is where now, Jocelyn, we will see the times really begin to come down. The likes of Ray, who qualified there down at 15th, he's more capable, I think, in this qualifying session. Watch out for him. It's going to be absolutely fascinating in terms of what we're going to see. And just for a little bit of sparseness, 9 Xbox drivers and 6 PS for Q2.
I'll keep an eye on that one. One thing I'm keeping an eye on at the moment is regards to the weather, because I'll be perfectly candid, it is starting to get very, very dark out there, and I'm wondering if rain is imminent, and that is why a bunch of drivers have all decided to leave immediately. We've got one of the WOR drivers is immediately, I think it was Nehemiah, the last of the WOR drivers, has decided to overtake everyone. He just wants to get on with it. So if rain is due to fall, we've still got 4 drivers who are still in the pit lane here, so they're leaving it very late to go out there and set a lap. But it will be Nehemiah, the first person to set a lap for WOR, as he now chucks the car through one, and he was very, very up on that curb, wasn't he? But he's able to just hit his apexes absolutely perfectly in those first couple of corners then. We'll see what he's like then going through into the complex of 3 through 5. And once again, just able to keep these apexes nice and tidy, as we'll keep an eye out on that right-hander now. Of course, fastest of anyone so far, but no surprises. NRX have gone that little bit faster and actually taken a little bit of a wider exit on that one. So maybe a conservative lap coming in from the WOR driver as he now goes onto the Mistral straight.
He does indeed, and he looked quite scrappy actually coming out of turn number 2. He got too much on the curb and just overtaken the car slightly, ran, then corrected it. But Nemaya now through the Mistral straight, then through the chicane node, and now up the hill in towards turn number 10. He's looking actually pretty good on this lap. A 50.4 in the middle sector though was well off what we were seeing with Nick. Certainly in terms of 49.9 at the beginning of the real laps in Q1. Nemaya coming through that turn 11 in towards Bose, I think it is at turn number 12, if I'm not mistaken. Nemaya, though, through turn 11 in towards turn number 12. Not looking too bad at all. The WR man has to try and set up now on the board. As you mentioned there, rain perhaps could be coming a little bit later on in the session. If it does, it's probably going to be around the later stage of the session, around 4 or 5 minutes in towards the end. But Nemaya coming through the final corner at Pont on the run toward the line. The WR man should be around a 130.6-ish, I think, in terms of this lap. On the run to the line, 130.9, a little bit way off in terms of my prediction. But Nemaya out on top. We should see quicker lap times coming in, though.
Yeah, Rusty, it wasn't an invalid lap, but Levi will go top of anyone so far by just a little bit over 0.3 of a second on that occasion. McCabe-7 getting a big tank slapper on that final corner and has to hug to the inside line as a result, but he's going to lose time. And in fact, he loses perhaps up to 3 or 4 tenths on that one as Talent Factory's Max comes across the line with a 30.527. His teammate's about to come across the line now, and he puts in a 30.4 on that occasion. Here comes the other VSR driver and racer 31.0 for him at this moment. Both of the PSR boys electing to stay in the pit lane, by the way, so perhaps the rain not due to fall on this one. Outplayed Racing's Nando goes 7th fastest because Stokey's just gone 8th with a 31.246 on that occasion. We are still waiting on a lap from a couple of people. Rusty perhaps on a slow lap, we'll have to see. Outplayed Racing's Ray also on an invalid lap though on that occasion here, as we do have Race Roller just now on an out lap himself here. In fact, he might have just started a lap by the looks of things for the SLR team, as we do have Aurelian, I don't know. Anyway, he's just on an out lap as well.
He is indeed the Frenchman. They're down in 14th position, looking to try and get a good lap time on the board. Race roll, as you mentioned, through the first sector, 22.7 in that first sector. So there or thereabouts is what we're teams are seeing with Nemaya's lap time. So expect them to go around that Nemaya, M-Racer, Nando, that sort of area. I'd imagine the sun trying to break through the clouds desperately just to try and get a bit of heat onto the track. These set of soft compound tyres really don't work as Race Roller now flies his way through the chicane node at turn 8 and 9, and then up the hill in towards turn number 10. He's really got to put himself maybe in the firing line for a very good lap here. 50.6 again is around Nemaya in terms of the lap time. Kean and Max, though, out on top. They definitely were saving something, I think, for Q2, considering their Q1 pace. Kean and Max were 4th and 5th, I think, in Q1 in the end. They're now 1st and 2nd in this qualifying session, so they have jumped a little bit above the competition. Whether or not that competition can catch back up to them, though, remains to be seen.
A very rear-happy car, that is actually the Kimi Räikkönen approach to driving with setups. He's hoping the front end will understeer and he can use the power of the rear-wheel drive car, and of course a rear-happy setup will allow the car then to find the apex that he's looking for. But Race Roller will come across the line. It's clearly working for him, but he only goes 8th fastest so far with that 31.1, so he's a little bit down on perhaps what he could do. So he's definitely got some time to find out there, as finally one of the PSR boys has decided to go out on an out lap, and that's actually side to the fastest of the pair of them. He's just heading now into the third sector himself again on his out lap. We do have the Shizou driver though, and I'm going to just keep saying the Shizou driver because I don't want to butcher his name any further. He's just started a lap now and he's in the first sector.
He has indeed, coming through turn number 2, and he looked actually very, very neat coming out of turn number 2. Luke Etheridge, by the way, saying in the chat as well, what do we think the cutoff time is going to be? I'm thinking personally around a 130.7, 130.8. I know that seems quite high, but I think that is relevant to what we are going to be seeing as a rally, and lags his way coming through turn number 7. 22.2 though in the first sector, not at all bad from the Frenchman. We are nearly halfway through qualifying already in Q2. Kean out on top, Max there in 2nd, Levi there in 3rd. Skydive, as you said, just preparing up for the lap. He's literally just starting up on the lap now, coming across the start-finish line. A rally though through the chicane node on the run up the hill in towards turn number 10. The Frenchman looking to try and spark into life the Shizou ploy, and 49.9 in the middle sector at this stage of this qualifying session is absolutely huge.
Yeah, but he's getting tank slappers left, right and centre, and he's beginning to lag as well, and that will be one the stewards will be keeping a firm eye on, especially when we get into the racing scenario. Either way, he's in that third sector, is Aurelian, and he's looking sharp. Hey, I got it right that time. He's now heading through the final couple of corners. Is that Shizou? He's off of the track there, and I'm wondering now if he ends up qualifying, will the other teams decide, I'm not so sure that's actually a legal lap here. Here he comes then through that final corner, hits his apex perfectly, but again, lagging all over the shop at the moment, having to catch perhaps a little bit of oversteer as he now heads towards towards the line does Aurelian, and Shazoo's driver will go fastest of anyone so far. It's a 29.9, but his car was off of the circuit, and I beg to differ of whether that actually might be a legal lap, and if that is the case, the teams may have something to say about that.
Could do, but Skyler could have something to say about that as well. 49.6 in the middle sector from Aurelian. He must have got slipstream down the first half of the Mistral straight, I think, from his teammate, who's a little bit further behind him, out on track now. But Skyler is looking huge on this lap again, looking to go around the 29.6, 29.7 mark, flies out through the final corner, on the run toward the line, out of pond, on the run to the line, gets the DRS open. This should be quickest from Skyler, on the run to the line, and it's a brilliant lap. It's 29.5, dead on. 4 tenths clear, or nearly 5 tenths clear, in fact, of Aurelian. Aurelian's nearly 5 tenths clear of Kian. Kian, in the end, 50.1 in the middle sector. No response whatsoever from the Talon Factory man. He has come back in the pit lane, clearly not happy with that lap whatsoever. Max has just started on his run, but Skyler out on top, Aurelian in second, and that lap time from Skyler just comes to show what we're going to be seeing in Q3.
You're saying the 30.7 might be the cut-off, with the lap times coming in now as the track is clearly starting to lose that greenness that is out on the circuit at the moment. I'm wondering now, actually, you're saying that 30.7 might be too quick. It might actually be just a little bit too slow, I wonder, on this one here, because there's some cracking laps coming in. Ray really throwing the car in that first sector, as well as he now just comes across the line, does arch, and goes third fastest with a 30.3. We do have one of the other outplayed racing drivers about to come across the line. I think that's Nando to start his lap on this occasion. Aurelian obviously on his own, remember, as well, the Team Shazoo driver, so Shazoo will be really happy with the performance of Aurelian out there at the moment, and I'm going to keep saying Aurelian until I eventually get it ironed on my head at this point, as we've got Rusty coming across into turn 14, into turn 15 then, as Rusty looking to try and set a lap time on the board, never mind try and get up in the top here, and a 20.9.5 is what he's certainly going to be looking for. He's quick enough to at least get within that realm. As he comes across the line now, he does get a 29.5, but he's 54 thousandths slower than Scyther on that occasion, and again goes P2. His teammate though, Scyther's teammate on this occasion, Nick, is actually on an invalid lap on this occasion, and is now starting to run out of time here, so PSR will be wondering, was it a bad call waiting for Nick to go out there and have a go, because at least now it's going to have to be at least one conservative lap, and it might even be a fresh pair of boots at the end of this one as well. So serious risk potentially for Nick as he just comes into the pit lane. Stokey comes across the line for TV8. He can only go 12 faster, so he goes just a little bit under 1/10 faster than the SLR team's Race Roller, who again just not setting that representative lap time that perhaps we would expect from the SLR driver. He was looking so sharp in Q1, but Q2 is a little bit beyond him at the moment. Nando coming across the line then, actually, pardon me, he's going through 14 at the moment and about to come into turn 15. Again, he's looking to try and get within sort of FRA arch pace, I suspect. Excuse me, is the Alpha Tauri outplayed racing driver as he comes across the line now. We're looking for FRA Arch as he comes across the line. He does beat FRA Arch. 130.135, goes 3/10 faster. Cut off 30.9, 30.7. Not out of the realms of possibility, James.
Not out of the realms of possibility at all. I think my prediction though, around a 130.4, 130.5. Look at Kian. He's literally teetering, I think, on what the cutoff could potentially be. As of course, we've got Stokey, M-Racer, they can obviously improve. Nick down in 14th as well. Could be potentially a big shocking coming from PSR man down in 14th. Of course, he invalidated that lap, I believe, through the first sector, so that is why he is down in 14th at this stage. Skyler though out on top, Rusty there in second, Max in third. Big lap, by the way, from McCabe Sam, who went fourth as well. BSR clearly liking their main man, I think, at this stage. M-Racer looking to try and back that up. He's got a 31 flat. He just came out the pit lane as well for the final runs. But Q2, my word, this is going to be a very interesting. McCabe Sam feels like he's done enough. I certainly feel like he's done enough. That 29.8 will see him certainly, I think, in towards Q3. M-Racer though in 11, 31 flat, has ideally got to put this all on the line and aim for around Nando and Arch, and if he does that on his actual lap, he'll be invalid.
Well, we're just keeping an eye out on Talent Factory's Kian then, as he's now coming down the Mistral straight himself, looking to improve. Nearly got cut off by one of the McLarens, actually, but managed to get away with it on that occasion as he now heads down into the chicane, splitting the two straights, of course, off into turn 8, then into turn 9. And it's going to be an important lap here as well for Kian, because Talent Factory are looking to get both of their drivers through and at least put some pressure on the Informed team at the moment, and actually goes fastest of the second sector so far, apparently, and looking fairly sharp in here. And again, just really finding those white lines and able to hold on to them. And it is getting very dark out there, and it's increasingly getting darker. Felipe Massa, former Ferrari driver, once said, please provide me a white visor. And I think Felipe, maybe stay cool. We'll get you the white visor, is what Ferrari was saying. I think the drivers out there will be desperate for a white visor because it's so dark as they go through into turn 14, then into turn 15. That Ferrari looking fairly sharp, actually, to be fair, actually keeping the apexes and actually the tightest of all the apexes through turn 15, in fairness, as he now comes across the line with the DRS open. Does Talent Factory's key in as he sets himself only up into P4, going about a tenth and a half slower than his teammate. But Talent Factory still breathing down the neck of NRX and Scyther. Nick looking to improve if he can help it, but he's on an outlap, and if he goes P3 overall, we'll be getting an exact replica of the top 5 that we saw at the big end of Q1. So a minute and a half to go. Still got Nick to set a lap. Ray also on a lap as well, actually, and he's just going through in the first sector himself.
He is indeed, and M-Race is just ahead of him out on track as well, just starting up on a lap. The VSR man through the first sector. He's the first one through the first sector, split into 22.1, more like it from M-Racer in that first sector. Nick as well coming through that first sector split. Ray was a 22.2 in the first sector, so about 10th off an M-Racer compared to him. Race Roll as well, just preparing up for another lap at the stage. He's burning fuel. Nick, though, was quickest in the first sector, 22 flat in that first sector split. Big lap time incoming potentially from the PSR man. M-Racer, though, is about to come through the middle sector split out of the chicane node, running up the hill now in towards turn number 10. And he is a 49.8 in the middle sector, so pretty much level on with Pian. This looks pretty good from the VSR man. Ray in that middle sector, 49.9, so he's a little bit off. He might be in trouble potentially to go around Levi Aurelian sort of area. And Nick in the middle sector, 49.6, and he's going quickest out of the 3 that are currently fully on runs at this stage. Yeah,
30.3 is perhaps looking like the kind of cut-off time that we're now expecting, Luke, is the answer I think you were looking for perhaps about 5 minutes ago. Coming through into the final couple of corners, Kian retiring in the pit lane. He's happy with his 29.7. I would be as well. M-Racer then coming across that start-finishing line right now. DRS open. He tries to get himself into the top 10 as he goes 5th fastest, beats his teammate by just a little bit over 500ths of a second, as OP Nando is now down to P10 as a result of people jumping up there. I believe actually that might have been Ray who's gone up here, as Nick goes fastest of anyone so far with a 29.463. Lap time still looking to improve as we've got TV8 looking to try and improve where they can help it. We've got one in FRA Arch just going around at the moment through turn 8, turn 9. So plenty of track lap time to find here as he apparently goes fastest in the second sector. Nehemiah goes 3/10 of a second faster, but he's completely obliterated that corner there, and apparently he's still on a lap. So I don't know if he's managed to get away with that one or it was just my view, but Nehemiah probably shouldn't be on a lap at the moment as he now comes across the final couple of corners, turn 8, turn 9 rather, in the second sector. And then FRA Stokey looking to improve, but he is now just approaching turn 8 and turn 9 himself here. Race Roller looking to improve if he can help it, goes 12th fastest though for SLR, and again not a representative lap time I think we expected from Race Roller on this occasion. FRA Arch is looking to improve where he can help it as he comes across the line right now, and he does go 8th fastest for TV8 and actually pushes Levi into some serious danger here, as now the cutoff point is a 29.9. While this is all happening, we've got one of the I believe it's Aurelian going into the final corner now, and the Alpine looking to try and improve if he can help it and get himself out of the danger zone. 29.982 the cutoff as he comes across the line now and makes it a 29.986 and goes to an 8.842 thousandth faster than FRA Arch, who can't improve. Levi is in the drop zone as he potentially going to be in the drop zone, but he comes across the line, goes 4th fastest of anyone so far and drops Ray out of qualifying. FRA Arch will finish in 10th place overall. Ray cannot improve, he's invalidated his lap, so we're losing 2 outplayed racing drivers. We've lost a TV8 driver, we've lost the only other WOR driver, and we've lost an SLR driver. TV8 have got one driver through the skin of their teeth. The final cutoff, Luke, 1:29.886, nearly a second faster than what we expected, and you said that may have been a really large call for a 30.7 rather, James.
Yeah, 30.7 I think is completely obliterating what even I predicted from this session. I think the track evolution is beginning to get a bit brighter out on track. that track evolution was absolutely key. Everyone's laps were absolutely key as well. Nemaya actually had backed off coming across the line. He did improve in the end. He wasn't going quick because I think he made a mistake at the final corner, so he unfortunately is out of the session, along with Stokey, of course, for FRA. Rice rolled around 13th, I think overperformed himself in that qualifying session, did a phenomenal job. And both OP boys, I was literally about to cut you off and say, Ray is in trouble. Ray was in trouble, and then in the end, he's down in 11th position ahead of Nando, a 10th and a half of a second covering Arch to Ray there for 10th and 11th, but only Aurelian scraping in into the top 10 above Arch by 2,000th of a second. Very close indeed. And the top 3 covered by a 10th of a second. Who said France doesn't deliver in qualifying? And certainly it'll deliver as we go forward into Q3.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up. We're back after this short break. See you in a few. Through then into Q3, and after a really intense couple of qualifying sessions, we do have 2 PSR, 2 Nexus, 2 VSR, 1 TV8, 1 Shazoo, and both of the Talent Factory drivers through to qualifying 3, where of course everyone will get that extra set of soft tyres and will have an opportunity to go for pole here. Early indications suggesting PSR are on it tonight. They are surely favourites for pole position on this one, aren't they, James?
You'd like to imagine so. However, Kian and Max certainly provided me with a little bit of a shock, I think, in that qualifying session as well. I think the PSL boys will inevitably get it, but I just get the sense, Me's there in the chat saying PS on top of 3 drivers, I get the sense he might be feeling something in the Talent Factory waters and in that HQ right now, because Kian and Max, they were certainly better in Q2. They need to up their game again in Q3. They will not be too far off PSR at all in this session. Do not rule out the NOX man, of course, of Rusty there in 5th as well. He could be perhaps one of the top guys toward the end of the session. But whatever happens in this Q3, we can definitely say for absolute certainty, Legacy Division is the place to be tonight, and hopefully we get everyone, I'm going to predict it now, within 0.5 of a second.
6% worn tyres currently on M-Racer, so we've got a used set of softs at the moment on the VSR driver. Taking a look at Scythe, it looks like we've got used tyres on him as well. So looks like we're just going to have a quick sort of rundown of the drivers, just trying to get used to the circuit with the old tyres before going on that fresh set of soft tyres that are available to them, obviously going into Q3. Really good stuff though, of course, as you rightfully say there. Talent Factory's Me's in the chat saying that they've got an opportunity, and Kian and Max did actually have a better Q2 in that one, but they were still beaten by 3 drivers, 2 PSR, 1 Nexus, one of them being Rusty, who is on an outlap himself at the moment, just heading around turn 3, 4 and 5. But as it stands though, 1 each for Scyther and Nick. They both managed to beat each other through each qualifying session. The question is who's going to beat the other, and potentially who's going to beat the other to pole as well, because certainly that team is the favourite. But if it isn't going to be PSR, surely it's Rusty.
It could be Rusty, yeah. I think the NOX man is certainly going to be one to watch out for. Levi as well. Do not rule him out in this qualifying session. Basically, just say we can't rule anybody out in this qualifying session. Anything can happen in Formula 1. It probably just might. M-Racer nearly invalidating his lap, coming out of turn number 2 there on a run. He has backed off the VSR man on the run towards turn number 3. Went way too wide coming through turn 2. So, unfortunately for him, he is backed off on a run. The McLaren, however, Skyler is now preparing up for a lap, and he is on the run down once again in towards turn 1. 3 minutes of qualifying. Get your popcorn in, get your chocolate in, whatever. This is going to be a very tight qualifying session. Avatar there in the chat as well, just seeing your message. Is there a penalty for crossing the I-3 line when entering pit like PSGL? Let me check the track notes, because I've got it up. I believe track limits are going to be potentially on there. Scarter, though, through the first sector split. is a 22.1 in the first sector, but I'll check that out and get back to you.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one and make sure that the rule is there, because I think it's a common rule that is obviously placed across all Formula 1 leagues in general, that you have to make sure that you go in the pit lane in the right way, because of course there is a bunch of safety measures in on that one. You did see the standings for a very short moment there again. Talent Factory leading the way by 23, but of course are losing a lot of ground to PSR at the moment, so this is an opportunity for PSR to potentially take more points out of Talent Factory, or a Talent Factory going to bounce back in what will be an epic performance from the PlayStation lot. Of course, they are on one key and just started a lap. I think Max is on an out lap at the moment, as we're on board with Scyther now as he goes into that third sector. We aren't expecting any blistering lap times on this occasion. I think the majority of the drivers are on a used set of soft tyres as they come around. Final couple of corners now. Racer setting a 40.2, which is sort of well down what we expect from the drivers. So of course, either gone for a spin or he's invalidated, or he chose actually to invalidate his own lap on that occasion, if you will. DRS open then for Scyther. We're expecting a far quicker lap time coming in now as he comes across the line right now. It goes 29.5. For Scyther, immediately setting the pace as he did in Q2. But if that is a used set of soft tyres, which I suppose that they are, 29.5 is a good lap indeed on that occasion. Levi, 29.9 for him, as we keep an eye on TV8's Arch as well, who's also going to be on a lap as well. I believe Nick is on an out lap as he comes across the line to start his lap. In fact, no, pardon me, he wasn't on a lap, actually. He was on a lap, rather, with a 29.8, as we do have one of the Aston Martins about to either start or finish a lap. Well, either way, the Red Bull of FRA Arch for TV8 is definitely going to be coming across the line to improve on his lap. As he comes across the line, will he set something within the realms of what he did in Q2? 29.7, splitting both of the PSRs on the used set of tyres. We do have Kian coming across the line as he goes for a 29.6, so just behind Scyther. But again, Talent Factory are now really starting to close their gap on PSR. That pole position is not all done and dusted for them, you know.
They are indeed, and Max is up in the middle sector, 49.599 in that middle sector split for Max, looking absolutely huge. The Frenchman as well of a rally in 49.7, so he's a little bit off that time. He'll aim to go around Arch Nick sort of area. Back to Avatar's point, by the way. After passing separation point 1, drivers can extend to the right of the pit lane entry, but must keep 2 wheels inside the pit lane entry after safety car line 1. And drivers, if you enter to the left of separation point 1, which is the white line basically coming across before turn number 14, that white line, if they cross before that point, they will pick up a 5-second penalty in the race. As Max, the line goes quick as 29.4, big lap in from him. Rusty, by the way, backed off on his run. He actually invalidated his last run, and Rally now coming toward the line, try and go quicker, but he goes 4th in the end, 29.7. Rusty, by the way, just on an out there, it was a 29.3 on an invalid lap.
53.0 for NRX Rusty on this occasion anyway, as we're just keeping an eye out on that one as he now comes into the pit lane and chooses that is over and done with on that particular occasion for Rusty. So Rusty actually under a little bit of pressure going into the final laps, where of course he'll be on the new set of softs, as McCabe Sam is also going to be under pressure, invalidating his lap at turn 11. So that is that over and done with them, and as it stands so far, actually, VSR are under some pressure here because both of their drivers have invalidated going into the final runs of Q3. One setting an irrespective 140.285 and outside of the 107, and McCabe Sam absolutely invalidating his lap time with no lap time at all on the board. So VSR are going to be under some pressure, as is the man of the moment, NRX Rusty, and NRX Levi as well, out of the sort of position here as well. So NRX and VSR are under pressure. PSR have got a big gap between Nick and Scyther that they could do with closing up, but so far it is looking good for Talent Factory going out of this first set of runs, with Max, as it stands, on pole with that 29.4.
Yeah, definitely so. Gregerson there in the chat as well. Smokey is not racing here tonight, unfortunately, for PSR. Skyler and Nick are their lineup, and I believe Nick, if I'm not mistaken, I'll get this up on my laptop very quickly in terms of the race lineup. In terms of PSR, in terms of their final runs, I've got the on the right-hand side. I didn't even realise I did. Nick, 3 out of 3, so it's his third and final race. Skyler, this is his first race for the team, so Smokey potentially could be coming back next week, I think.
Yeah, and then people in the chat, actually, Joseph, absolutely nailing it in there, saying Smokey is racing tonight. He's racing in P21 in classic Smokey fashion. Not allowed on the circuit at the moment is Rusty, because he's not racing tonight, just to fully confirm on that one. McCabe Sam is just in the third sector, by the way. He's just about to come in, I suspect, and obviously get a new set of boots on that car, and everyone will now be in the pit lane. As I say that, actually, one person is not in the pit lane. It's Racer. He's decided to leave the pit lane, but critically, if I'm right in saying, no, there we are. So there is the current tyre situation as regards of the current choice, and Racer on an outlap with those fresh set of soft tyres now at his disposal. He's a little bit out of sync with everyone else. He's gone out quite early with a 140.2. Don't really blame him, to be fair. Both VSR drivers are under the cosh alongside both NRX ones.
Yeah, Racer, I think he'll be looking to go around Nick Levi, that sort of area, around a 29.8, 29.9. If so, he'll be very, very happy. The same with McCabe Sam as well. He in qualifying doesn't really deliver a good qualifying performance, and I'm literally saying that from what I've seen in console tier 1 as well. He normally bottles qualifying to an extent and then comes absolutely alive in the race. He's going to be qualifying in the top 10. Watch out for him in the race. If there is a lot of carnage ahead of him, which there probably might be, McCabe Sam could be one to watch out for. Kian and Max are just leaving the pit lane as well for Talent Factory. Racer, though, is currently on an outlap. Joseph also saying TF Max apparently shops at TK Max. I'm not sure if they do TK Max over there in the Netherlands. I'm sure they do, but TK Max, I must say, is a very, very good shop, even if Joseph doesn't think that.
Not a sponsor, by the way, as we just clarify on that one. TJ Maxx, by the way, if you're over in the Americas watching this one. Racer at the moment, just now coming around the final couple of corners to start his lap then. So, as we said, VSR and NRX under the cosh here, so no surprises for him to set out quite early. But critically, NRX are not feeling the pressure, and they've actually sent one of their drivers out quite late by the looks of things, as have McCabe Sam also left. He's actually still in the pit lane, just leaving as Racer starts his lap. He's obviously going to be backed up potentially by some slower traffic as he goes towards the end of his lap, potentially from one of the McLarens, if not one of the NRX drivers. But he is on a hot lap at the moment and looking to try and set a respective Q1, of course. And you've got to remember, if you burn through your tyres too quickly, you're going to find yourself under some serious pressure if you do need to have another go at this one. So if you're going to invalidate it, do it early. And he's actually a second up in that first sector. And by the looks of things, he's actually decided, you know what, I can do better than that, and he's decided very early on he's going to have another go at this one. And to be fair to him, it's the best decision if you are deciding you are going to give it another go.
Yeah, and speaking of that as well, he's going to be one of the final men to come across the line to start up on his final run as well. So with the track evolution, potentially getting quicker as the session goes on. That is not a bad chat, actually, from Racer. The VSR man clearly there wants to try and get a lap in. He clearly feels he can do better. Well, I think us in the commentary box clearly feel he can do better there as well, in 8th position. Cape Sam and Rusty are just preparing up on out laps at this stage. Max Sutherland down and towards turn 1. I'm just trying to find who might be furthest on a run. I believe it is TF Kian, if I'm not mistaken. Coming to the right-hand of turn number 5, and then through 6, 22 flat in the first sector. Looks like he's purple in that first sector, so the Talent Factory man now coming down the straight, and of course, he was previously a part of OP back in Q2, back in PSGL F2. Now, of course, part of Talent Factory in PSGL F1. He's doing a fantastic job there, and Kian now coming through the chicane node, looking to try and set the timing screens alight with a purple middle sector. We'll see what his middle sector like. Is like 49.6 in the middle sector, pretty much matching what he did in Q2, actually.
Yeah, so looking pretty sharp at the moment is Keane. He was actually particularly conservative in the first sector. Didn't sort of maximise all of the track he had available to him through turn 3 and 5, but through 6 and 7, he absolutely reached the limit of what he could do. So he is pushing as hard as he can. Misses the apex ever so slightly at 12, though, so he'll ride the curb all the way down to the line as he goes into turn 14, and again try and avoid the curb at 15 if you can help it, but try and touch the apex if you can, and he does. He nails it, and he'll put his power down to the line. He'll be the last driver, or the first driver, to set his final lap in Q3, and it's a 29.6 he sets originally. Comes across the line 29.4, beating his teammate by just a little smidge over half a tenth as Arch comes across the line, goes third fastest. His teammate Max, though, Talent Factory's Max, comes across the line, will improve. He does got to a 29.3 as we've got Scyther coming across the line with a 29.3 of his own on that occasion, and that puts him now well within the touching distance of pole. But there's plenty of drivers still yet to set a lap, including his teammate, and of course never discredit NRX in this one as well. We've got Levi looking to improve. He needs to get within the 29.4s or 5s if he wants to be in touching distance of potentially racing quite well tonight. Levi comes across the line 29.3 as well. Will with another driver 5,000ths of a second slower than Max on this occasion. Nick goes fastest of anyone with a 29.255 on that one, as we've got a Mercedes coming across the line. I believe it's Racer looking to improve if he can help it. It's only a 29.6 for him here on this one, as Aurelian comes across the line. It's a 29.420 for him on this occasion, as we've got McCabe Sam looking to improve, with Rusty going only 7th fastest of anyone so far. McCabe Sam goes, I believe that was 8th fastest on that occasion, and that will wrap up that one. And I tell you what, the top 10 drivers were all separated by such a small margin, and in the end, pole position separated by less than 3/4 of a tenth. The entire top 10 separated by just a little bit over 3.5 tenths. But look at that margin of a 29.2333444 with a 29.5 for 9th place. I must admit, if you're M-Racer or Arch in this scenario, you'd be absolutely fuming that you've just missed out on that one, because that is close.
That is really close indeed. My word. I said at the start of Q3, we're going to see everyone within 5/10 of a second. Didn't literally mean it. 3.5 tenths, in fact. Nick out on top, Skyvan second, 1-2 again from PSR. They seem to be the go-to team, I think, at this stage. Max there in third, Levi there in fourth. My word, we are in for an absolute treat. And if anybody did see my comment, I was actually seeing Rusty potentially for this race win. Not with that qualifying session. 49.8 in that middle sector wasn't really on a good lap, I think, from that middle sector onwards.
Really, really good stuff in the end, though. Talent Factory then are on 179 points overall, but it is PSR once again rounding out the top two as they take a front row lockout tonight. We're going to be in for a very, very good race ahead of us. We'll be back in just a few short moments. Good evening there, ladies and gentlemen across the world. You're tuning in to WOR Legacy Division, and this is the French Grand Prix. Another look at those standings as they are. Talent Factory are leading the way in the standings, but they've got drivers in 3rd and 5th. It is a front row lockout for the team in 2nd place. Paradox Sim Racing, 23 points behind. It is myself, Jota, alongside James for this event here. What a qualifying that was. And just a few short words, James. What are we in for?
We are in potentially for race of the Legacy Division all season, potentially. France is always a good track for racing. Everyone is going to be on a fresh set of tyres. I can't wait for this one.
It's going to be a really, really good one, isn't it? The drivers are very keen to get going. They've readied up a bit earlier than we expected. They're lining up on the grid. And with those drivers lined up, we're going to be counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are down that inside line. PSR Nick, of course, is going to try and defend from side to side. They may choose to defend from those behind to help PSR as a team going into turn 1 and immediately out the blocks. PSR are able to hold off from any initial attack as NRX Levi is losing a position to Talent Factory, and that's a horrible spin towards the back, and Talent Factory getting into an immediate spin there with one of the NRX drivers. I believe that was to be Levi, who's now down to 12th place while that's all happening, as Max is already putting some pressure on Scyther and immediately goes for the dive going into turn 4. And in that particular one here, Scyther is going to have to put some pressure on as we've got more people spinning towards the back, and it looks like Aurelian has gone for a spin, and it looks like some other people losing some position as well. Nehemiah up to 9th, Levi's down to 10th after that collision with Kian.
Yeah, and then the NRX team are going to be very, very annoyed because Rusty actually spun a rally and coming to the right-hand return number 4, and unfortunately there, he's down in 15th, 16th position of rally, and unfortunate for him off the start. Nando there is side by side with M-Racer coming through the S section there of the chicane Nord. Raceball has got a fantastic start. Tom has got a fantastic start. 20th on the grid up to 10th position. Arch, by the way, did not move at all from the start. He absolutely slept off the line. That's why he's down so far in the field in 15th position. But Nick leading the way. Max in 2nd. Skyler in 3rd. And Max side to the inside line, and speaking of which, Tom to the inside line of Race Roller. What a move that is from the Shazoo man. He's doing his into 9th already on that fresh set of hard compound tires. Tyner's going side by side as well with Levi. There's so much action going on, we probably can't keep up, but Tom already doing his into 9. He's the massive gainer in this race, already up 9 positions. Namaya, by the way, on a set of softs is ahead of him in 8th as well.
Race Roller in the pit lane to change the front wing. That may explain why the overtake occurred. It looks like he's got a little bit of front wing damage on that one. Other people going in. FRA Stokey for TV8 also in as well. VSR on the set of hard tyres. They've got Outplayed Racing's Nando behind them. But crucially, we've got Nehemiah in 8th place. He's on a little bit of a backward strategy as he goes on the soft tyres. As Simba Rocks 1 has gone for a spin. And it looks he's gone for a really big spin actually going through turn 1. He's completely off of the circuit as he rejoins now down in 18th.
He does. I'm not sure if that was involved as Namaya gets through, and Nando actually coming through turn number 5. He's doing his into 7, absolutely flying on that set of soft compound tyres. He is the Spaniard. But I'm not sure what happened to Simba. I'm not sure if there was contact there with the rallying, a little bit of desync, or if he just spun by himself. It looked like the latter to me from a very far camera angle, and he's gone for spin again. He's on the wall. Surely Simba Rocks has got damage on that right side end plate. Just about recovers the car. Unfortunately, he is down in 18th position. He's going to be caught by his teammate and Stokey sooner rather than later. So unfortunate from the SLR team. 18th and 19th, not the start they would have wanted for. Certainly the start that the WOR man wanted for. Namaya up into 7th. Tom there in 9th. Fantastic start for them. And they've gained 11 and 8 positions respectively.
Strategy is not falling in the favour of Nehemiah though, because those soft tyres are going to burn very, very quickly in racing scenario here. So he'll be soft hard, surely, if he wants to commit the 1 stop. Otherwise, it's going to have to be a 2 stop on that one. As we've got Shazoo Francie in the chat, not particularly happy with NRX in that particular race star, and thinks that Rusty could be in trouble with the stewards. So either way, the stewards will make that decision. There's the strategy call, as the predicted pit stop strategy is to be hards to start off with and either do medium soft or do mediums. In this case, Nehemiah doing the soft tyre stint, so it could be a 1 stop, soft to hards, but he's certainly going to be on the back foot in that one. While this is all happening, of course, Talent Factory Kian is looking to bounce back after that spin earlier on with the NRX driver. I believe that one to have been Levi on that occasion, as he now goes through into turn 2. Looks like he's got away without damage though, so in that situation it's bad, but it could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse, and he's still in the points as well. He's still in 10th position. He hasn't lost everything out of this race. Race Roller's back in the pit lane, by the way, down in 19th position. What a rallying has to contend with, though, there down in 13th. There's a lot of lag coming from Archer's perspective. Arch didn't, Louis Michigan there saying in the chat, apparently his lights didn't go out, and that's why he was so slow. And Arch now is right on the back of Tyne, running down the straight in towards the chicane north at turns 8 and 9. Kian already after that spin, coming through turn number 3, is already making moves on Yona. Yona there, not really versed this track that well. He did finish 2 laps down in this race around here that I last commentated on. For him, he's down there in 15th, down there in 16th as well, trying to go great guns. But Nick currently holding fort out in front. Max there in 2nd, Scarlett there in 3rd. The VSL boys are now beginning to pull away, and the Namaya's soft compound tyres are already looking like they're beginning to get blistered on the front right tyre, as Arch goes for an absolute send on Tyne in the background of shot. Just round aboard this now. The Red Bull through on the hatch.
Oh no!
On the curb. The Haas gets caught on the curb, and I think he got caught on the curb to basically got forced into Arch. So unfortunate. Tyne didn't deserve that. Neither did Arch. And Tyne there down in 17th. That was unavoidable.
Not much Arch could have done, to be fair there. It just got up on the curb, did the Juventus driver. And in that one, Levi is currently struggling a little bit when it comes to the traction of the car, because he's been losing the rear end at some of the slowest corners of them all. So he's obviously not finding so comfortability in that Aston Martin at the moment, and is now relegated out of the top 10. And now Leon could be in a position to potentially overtake the NRX driver. And it's going from bad to worse for Levi at the moment on his final race in WRLD, for at least for this stint. Again, look, that tank slapper, the rear oversteer, just wanted to send the car off here, and he's got loads of grip on that hard tyre. I wonder when those hard tyres start to age, how bad is Levi going to have to deal with that oversteer here? Then here comes Orlean then, as he's going to make the move, and Levi is relegated down 2 positions in 1 lap, as he's now relegated to 12th. Levi will try and defend it, but around the outside he hasn't got the grip, and he's now relegated to 12th. And now look who's behind him. It's Talent Factory's Kian.
Yeah, Kian was very late on the brakes as well, coming down in towards the chicane. No, but Levi is on the back foot, though. He's in 12th position, completely on the back foot at this stage. A rally in there that probably the Frenchman and the French car getting the move done up into 11th position. The French fans will certainly be happy with that in the in-game fan rooms, certainly in the grandstands at this point. Arch there beginning to lose a little bit of time, though, the FRO man. Not sure if he's got potential damage as a result of that collision. Whatever is happening, though, with Arch now brings the rallying completely back into play. The Frenchman has got pace around here, and the Shizou man has got winning form around here as well. I'm not saying he's going to win, but he's there in 11th, and he'll look to try and snatch a top 10 position off the back of Arch, as Nemaya is still keeping up with the VSL boys, which is good to see. So how that pace has actually recovered. Nando and Tom will get closer to him as the laps go by. Nick, though, leading the way. Max in second, Scarda there in third. And for the first time, I think, Jota, Max is beginning to provide a bit of pressure out front. Yeah,
potentially. Nehemiah managed to burn through that blister, so he's obviously now putting some pressure, maybe a second wind on these soft tyres. As just keeping an eye on the chat as well, Lucas saying, think Levi has damage. I bet that is about right. You know, he's not comfortable out there. I wonder if that collision with Kian on lap 1 has actually left him with some minor damage. Not enough to consider a pit stop, but just enough now that he is hemorrhaging time. And here comes Kian actually on that move against Levi earlier on, seeing them spin out going through turn 2, and now Kian has got, well, he's exacted somewhat of a revenge on Levi as he now promotes himself up to 12th place. Levi will try and put the pressure on, but again, if he has got damage and that rear end constantly stepping out for the Aston Martin, he will not try and contest it too hard. Perhaps he's going to look down the straights if that's the case. He has got Jonah behind him for Juventus Racing in 14th. While this is all happening towards the front, you're absolutely right. Max is starting to gain a little bit of time on Nick on this occasion, but it is all about that battle at the moment. Actually, would you believe, for 10th place at the moment, because there's so many drivers sort of within touching distance, as Kian is now starting to slowly gain on Orlean and could end up being in DRS territory shortly. And in fact, he is now in DRS territory, which will now see a DRS train form from 10th all the way far down as 16th place at the moment.
Yeah, that's good for the likes of Levi, Yona, Ray, Dan Spreen, all in that battle, who obviously getting that DRS train. They're now hooking on to the back of this train, and hopefully there's no splits in that train come up. We saw Swap, by the way, for 5th position. The VSL boys didn't want to go side by side towards turn number 10, so M-Racer now clearly feeling that he's got the pace. He's now through and he's into 5th. He has gained a little bit of time on McCabe Sam. McCabe Sam is doing a good job there in 6th position, but they have got Nemaya behind him on more ERS, and in fact he's actually got about twice as much as ERS as the guys in front of him combined. So Nemaya has got more ERS to try and use up. He's now going to try and burn up that ERS running down the Mistral straight, looking for P6, and McCabe Sam defends to the inside line, now defends the middle of the track once again. Nemaya has that inside line. Is he going to dive it to the inside line? Not quite. Forces McCabe Sam into a slight mistake. Coming through the chicane, gets a good run out, maybe up the hill and towards turn number 10, and he's now going to pull alongside, surely in towards turn number 10 to the inside line. Nemaya goes McCabe Sam, no jinx to the inside line to try and defend. There's a huge lag spike coming through turn number 10. Goodness me, I couldn't see on my screen for a second, but what we can see now is Nemaya trying to go around the outside of turn number 11. McCabe Sam there in 6th, Nemaya there in 7th. Huge lag spike on my end. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, good respectful racing happening on my screen is what I saw. There's really, really good stuff actually between McCabe Sam, leaving it until the last second to determine where he wants to go. The only issue is Nehemiah has now burnt through all of that ERS that he had, and he's now well deep below 10%. And of course, if those soft tyres are now coming to the end of their life, he's going to find himself in a real sticky situation here, because he's going to end up losing time and hemorrhaging time to Outplayed Racing's Nando, who is now in 8th place, trying to gain that time. And of course, the DRS train may end up forming from around M-Racer to maybe as low as Shizou Tom if he starts getting that time. And he is finding a lot of time, a couple of tenths every corner at the moment. So Shizou are able to at least get one driver through and through up towards the top, as Orlean is obviously still in that little battle at the moment with TV8's Arch at the moment. Towards the front, by the way, while this is all happening, Rusty is just about to get back in the DRS territory of Scythe, though, while this is all happening. And now that's given an opportunity potentially for the NRX driver to put some pressure towards the front. The only issue is whilst the DRS train is happening between first and third, as we've got potentially a little bit of a battle happening between Nando and Nehemiah down into the corner. And this is what I said about using all that DRS in that battle with VSR. WOR now have lost a position, and now the soft tyres are going to start falling off the cliff as a blister is opening up on the front right.
Yeah, definitely. So, Nando, to be fair, there was not an AlphaTauri shake gap to the inside line coming down the straight through the chicane. No. And in the end, he managed to pull that one off from absolutely nothing. The OP man threw, and he's into 7th. They do say about Italians and OP, certainly, like they do like to get their elbows out. They certainly showed that with Nando. He's up into 7th. Namaya there in 8th, and Namaya now beginning to drop down. I wonder if he actually does come into the pit lane potentially this lap around. 20 laps on a set of hards and make it towards the end of the race. Certainly from the PS perspective, whether or not Namaya wants to do that remains to be seen. He is staying out for this lap around. There is a yellow flag in the final sector that is tying his round in 17th. The Juventus Racing Man round in 17th position. Levi has got damage, I believe, to the right side end plate, if I'm not mistaken. So that is him now struggling on the back of Kian. Ray's right on the back of him as well. And Ray and Yona are going to be right there, I think, on the back of Levi. Levi can forget about this race and hopefully move on to the F1 Esports Challenges, which is coming in, I think, 3 weeks' time from.
Yeah, of course, Levi will not be taking any further part in WORLD, I believe, for until the next transfer window, if indeed there is one. Keeping an eye on the comment, by the way, from Joseph in the chat, who says now, I believe, and this is his maths at the moment, I have it as Talent Factory Championship lead now 1 point at the moment. So if Scyther is able to get the jump on Max, PSR will take lead in the championship, as we do have a swap now, as Orlean has managed to get past Arch, and now Shazoo have got 2 drivers into the top 10. Good racing, actually, from Shazoo. They didn't have a good qualifying, but they're actually having a really good race. As Levi, it gets from bad to worse here with that right end plate damage. He tries to go for the wider entry exit, big tag slapper, and I tell you what, well caught, but that is all a testament to the setup he currently has. I did say he was struggling with that rear, and that is just a big testament to the issues he's facing. He loses 2 positions.
And using the real-life skills, I think, in the Mazda MX-5 Championship that I think he competes in, to good effect there, because any stretch of the imagination, 99% of the time, you guys in the comment section, and certainly me here in the commentary box, would have probably lost that car. Levi is a class above the rest in terms of that. Namai, by the way, has decided to come in the pit lane. Wonder if WOR are listening to the stream, perhaps, and listening to my strategy calls there from Namai's end. What has happened, though, up front? Rusty is now within a second of Skyler, Max, and Nick, and he was actually outside of a second the last time I looked. So Rusty now within a second on the back of the front 3. The front 3 are doing a good job. They're just trying to hold on to each other in terms of the EOS stage. They've got around about 45-46% of EOS, in fact, the top 3. Rusty has used up all of his battery, 16% of his battery. But we saw a little bit earlier on in the season here in Legacy Division, he does like to save up his battery, lift and coast into the corners. Rusty, however, it looks as if he's just literally been shot out of a cannon and is going to come on the back of Max, Skyler, and Nick, because these guys are just falling over each other with nothing happening in front of them. Rusty's there in 4th, and he's clearly the quickest out the front 4.
Yeah, but he has to consider doing a little bit of lifting and coasting as well, because he's also down on fuel. So he's going to have to sort of focus his priorities here and think about what he needs to do longer term here. And of course, he needs to stay within the DRS territory. That's critical to his situation here, as we do have Scyther putting Max under pressure here, and perhaps PSR have just calculated themselves that they're at potential opportunity to gain the championship lead for the first time this season if they get a 1-2 tonight and make it 3 1-2s in a row for the PSR team as they go through into turn 15. Going to be a critical corner here, because if TF Max gets that loose rear end, Scythe will be very happy to swallow that position up, but very, very well driven from the Ferrari, and actually gains a little bit of time off of Scyther on that one. DRS is open, but with him staying within touching distance of Nick, of course he will have the DRS open. Rusty will remain in P4, but he needs to seriously consider lifting and coasting soon, try and recover some of that electrical energy, so at least he can put some kind of pressure on PSR and make them think not just about the person in front, but also the person behind.
Yeah, Rusty's got clearly the pace compared to the front 3, I think, at this stage, and him he's doing a fantastic job, the NOX man, and 22% of EOS is better than what was last time around. He's still got to save up that battery. It's very hard, especially in this middle sector, to try and save up that battery, because you're basically going flat out for the entirety of this middle sector, bar a couple of corners on the exit of turn number 6 and 7, and then through turn number 10 as well. All of that in between is straight, apart from the chicane right in the middle. So Rusty has got to be careful, I think, in terms of his battle, in terms of trying to preempt, basically, any attacks from in front. Skyler attacks Max, it all changes, and that will change as that Dan Spreen spun coming through turn number 5 there, the WOL man down at the back of the field, literally coming home from work, by the way, and he's in there in 18th position, doing a fantastic job. Not many drivers, I've got to say, will come home from work, literally hop onto a PS4 within about 5-10 minutes, and then do WOR Legacy Division. He has to be really, really rewarded for that.
Rusty's short shifting. He's now allowing himself to be able to recover some of that energy that he needs to find. And of course, in doing so, the engine is able to just harvest that little bit more energy through the corners, and he's now recovering quite a big chunk of his energy, now above 30%, or approaching above 30% on that one. Has got Luke Humphries. Luke, the Humperdinck himself, and it got a pen last week, so it was a 1-3. Yes, he did get a penalty, but on track, they still managed to achieve that 1-2, and that is really what they're thinking about as regards to form, because the form is with them, and even though they only got the 1-3, that is certainly going to be the situation that they're going to be considering, because of course if they can keep their noses clean, as they unfortunately didn't do at the Hungarian Grand Prix, they may end up finding themselves in a real tasty position as league leaders of this championship with not that many rounds to go. Rusty, by the way, is able to still continue harvesting his energy and still staying within touching distance of those in front, which has now allowed the gap to open to 5 seconds, as we've got Nando trying his hardest to race with both of the VSR drivers, but in doing so, McCabe Sam has had to commit to an overtake on M-Racer to try and defend from Nando in 7th. So McCabe Sam in 5th, M-Racer in 6th. Nando is trying to go down that inside line, and he's found the gap. I do not know how he's found it. M-Racer's going to have to go around the outside. He will hold on to that position, but in the end, Outplayed Racing is really putting some pressure on VSR at the moment. Around the outside, they will go then of turn 11 into turn 12. He might go for the dive. You know, the gap is there if he looks for it, but he's certainly not going to go for the dive on this occasion. Perhaps the rear just not able to get the power down as quickly as he wants. He stays in 7th.
I think, to be honest, he moved the wrong way. He should have went around the outside of turn number 10, because he would have pulled that off. He would have definitely pulled that move off, and Nando, in the end, just has to wait. He just has to bide his time. This is the impatience with Nando. This is the racer's instinct, basically, and Nando coming out and telling them, you've got to go for that move. You've got to try and attack the VSR boys. His engineer is probably telling him that at this stage as well. But I think he's just got to wait. He's just got to bide his time. McCabe Sam's coming back to him. Same with M-Racer as well. M-Racer is coming back to him as well. And Nando all of a sudden looks quicker compared to these guys. And he's there in 7th position. He's going to look to try and get the move done. I think down and towards turn 8 9, that'll be the best opportunity for overtaking. If he is rewarded with the gap, as Levi puts up a 3-second penalty, which just adds to his woes. Nando will not, however, pick up on the EOS on the back of M-Racer and McCabe Sam. He's just had a huge moment there coming out of turn number 5. But Nando there in 7th is going to back off for now. Max, however, for the first time, applying nearly too much pressure to Nick. So he nearly went in deep through turn 8 and 9. Nick there leading the way, Max in 2nd. We're only halfway through. Second half of the race will be better than the first, but Nick leads, Max in 2nd. And for the first time, Max, not sure if he's getting a little bit impatient, but that racer's instinct's going to be coming out and telling them, I've got to go for the move before the pit stops.
Crispy, the goated race engineer, is asking the question of what is the gap to the leader. Well, you've got 3 drivers at the moment. Well, 2 drivers, within touching distance are able to find the gaps between first and all the way far down as 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th place. So you've got the opportunity to ask your drivers what the gaps are between each of the individuals in this one. So you can ask that one and figure that one out for yourself, my friend. I apologise. As we've got TF Max then with DRS open for the Ferrari once again for the 11th time on this event down that straight. He will continue on trying to chase for the race victory here, as FRA Arch is now making some overtakes on Kian, because Factory's Kian has now come into the pit lane. He's gone for an early pit stop to get onto the medium tyres a little bit earlier than perhaps we expected. We're thinking of 50-50 sort of pit stop strategy is what we're expecting, but he is in a little bit early, well, perhaps 1 lap early on this one anyway, for a 14-lap stint on a set of medium tyres to the end of this race. He'll be hoping that he can get the jump on a few people as they all come into the pits for what would be, as we predicted, a 50-50 sort of split.
Yeah, undercut is better than the overcut around here, so I do not blame Keane for doing that. He was basically 4th in a 5-car train. And Keane there will now try and gain all of those positions back out on track. Again, Max in towards turn number 8 and 9 through the chicane north. Very, very deep on the brakes, and he's there 4/10 of a second away. He's still not using any ERS. Nick, not either. Nick, however, is running much lower on fuel compared to Max. Max there has not got the red fuel light blinking. Nick has. I think Skyler has as well, so PSR clearly running less fuel than Talent Factory at this stage. Rusty as well is involved in this battle. He's there in 4th, 1.4 seconds off the back of the leader, who is Nick at this stage. Rusty, though, he has been, again, just a little bit easy, a little bit cautious potentially. We are going to see, though, I'm sure, one of these guys come into the pit lane very soon indeed. Probably not this lap around, it will probably be in the next 2 or 3 laps, I would think. Nick though leads, Max in 2nd, Skyler there in 3rd. BSR not spinning the strategy either further down as Tom is into the pit lane. I believe he cut the white line there slightly. and Archer just picking the 3-second penalty, but Tom is in. Archer also in his pit lane.
Rusty would do himself a favour here by being the first person to blink and going for the pit lane because, he's at the back here. He can't lose anything being on the undercut because McCabe Sam and all that are 6 seconds behind. So the only thing he's got to think about is potentially traffic, but with a bunch of people all now coming in, you'd expect, surely, that Rusty would be the biggest beneficiary of an undercut here. So surely we'd be expecting something from him as soon as we possibly can, as Juventus Racing's Jonah gets a penalty, 3-second penalty for his troubles. That's for multiple warnings. Orlean in 8th place then, as he's now 2 seconds behind on Nando. Give him a little bit of a time here as he's still using overtake with 4 or 5% on his sort of cards here. He really needs to consider looking after his ERS here because he desperately needs it on these straights, especially as he gets into his second stint, as Nando goes so late on the brakes and he's putting pressure on M Racer. But once again, VSR, the team that really are working together so well at the moment, able to keep the outplayed racing driver at bay in 7th place. And we're coming towards now the end of this lap. They're approaching turn 11 are the front four. And we'll be looking to see if anyone decides to blink here. Now, we are expecting, surely, Rusty to be one of the first ones to blink. But if one of the front three blink, Rusty could be in trouble as regards a strategy call. We'll see what happens anyway as they come through in here now. And one of them has blinked, and it will be Max who decides to pit. And in fact, Nick is also pitting as well. So Scythe will lead from the front. But Rusty, who has got no issue at all if he decides to commit to the undercut, is committing to the overcut. And will now get promoted to second place as he puts pressure on Scythe. While this is all happening, by the way, his ERS management's been fantastic as he gets to 50.
Yeah, definitely so. Kean, by the way, ahead of Tom, coming down the Mistral straight as well, and overtake that we might have missed. He's down in there in 11th position. Did perform that undercut on Tom and Arch very, very neatly indeed. In fact, Tom's within that ERS range. Max, though, and Nick now beginning to come out the pit lane. They've got Yona right out there in front of them. That is potentially the worst possible part of the track to come out on. Coming out the pit lane and having a car that is literally a second and a half slower than you per lap on right in front of you. That is the worst situation. Yona, though, was a very respectable driver. I've commentated him a lot of times here on the PS platform. Nick, however, should make this look pretty easy. He's going to have to use up that 70% of ERS, and coming out now through onto the Mistral straight. Max is not going to be close enough, but I think this should be easy for Nick. One of the easiest overtakes you'll see all night. Nick through, and he's into 4th. Yona there down into 5th, and now Max, hopefully, if he's close enough, will try and get him down the second half of the Mistral straight into turn 10. Yeah,
while this is all happening, by the way, Kian has invited himself into the battle between Outplayed Racing's Nando and potentially the two VSR drivers. McCabe Sam obviously needs to make his pit stop, but M Racer was just behind, and they're on a set of medium tyres as M Racer with Nando. Kian pitted 2 laps early, of course, to commit to the undercut, and he's now invited himself into that battle. The only issue, of course, while this is all happening, is that we've got a little bit of battling happening towards the front here as M Racer gets the jump on Nehemiah. While this is all happening, of course, Kian is now down on ERS, as is Nehemiah, actually, for that matter. 6-lap-old hards that he's hoping potentially to take to the end of this race. Remember, he did the very, very alternative strategy of starting on the soft tyre. Nando then in 9th place, looking to try and fend off from an attack here, as Max is now down in 6th place, because Jonah has decided to come into pits, so now he's obviously lost the position. Now he's up to 6th place. While this is all happening, by the way, Rusty has been relegated down to 4th place, because Max has managed to get the jump on him as to be expected in front of Nick, who's still racing with him, but he's lost 2 seconds in that battle while committing to the overcut. Scythe is committed to an astronomical overcut as he's still on the hard tyres, 21 laps ahead, but he potentially could be as far as 4 seconds back on Nick at the moment. I'm not sure why people think the overcut is going to be a treat here, because I know that you're going to get a little bit more time and a little bit more effort on the medium tyre towards the end of this race, but it's not going to benefit anyone in this one, as we've got a bit of collisions happening between VSR and Shazoo at the moment, as they're still battling, and Tom O'Lean fighting really hard for Team Shazoo. McCabe Sam for VSR relegated to 11th, of course. Remember, he's just pitted while this is all happening. And here comes FRA Arch for TV8 as we're going potentially up to 4 wide going into the next corner. But in the end, they decide not to go in that formation. And Shazoo will stay in 9th and 10th.
And Shazoo pulled off an absolute team tactic of perfection there. Archer's on the back, however, of Tom, and he's coming back at him. Skyler's in the pit lane from the race lead. Archer's not going to get the move done. Coming to the right-hand return, number 10. McCabe Sam, though, absolutely bullied out of position there by the Shazoo boys. Brilliant racing between the lot of them. McCabe Sam now losing 3 positions. He basically came out on that set of mediums. He wanted to be ahead of the Shazoo boys.
Whoa, what a dive!
Not actually an arch. That was an absolute send from the Mercedes on the Red Bull. Tries to get the job done, not quite close enough. Maybe run the axe on a lack and punt coming through 14 and 15. This will be a very unorthodox move to pull off the move.
Nice.
The inside line. Just about makes contact with him, still side by side at the final corner. Now on the road stand towards turn 1. Arch, I think, has got more ERS, and I think he's got the inside line. He should have a car length width in towards turn 1 ahead of the Mercedes. The Mercedes, they're still fighting. Sam McCabe, if he pulls this off, this will be brilliant. There's a bit of hand of range there from the Mercedes. Mercedes is ahead. Arch there in 12. Fairness and racing for the most part, at least. McCabe, Sam in 11. Arch in 12. If there wasn't contact coming through turns 1 and 2, and it's very difficult to go through side by side there, that could have been overtaken this season.
He licked the stamp, he sent it, found out the Royal Mail was on strike and sent it via UPS instead. Absolutely astronomical racing between the pair of them. And then now McCabe Sam for VSR back up to 11th place, but just within the DRS territory of Shazoo. While Shazoo, this is happening in 9th and 10th, Tom is just out of the DRS territory of Orleans, so I'm wondering if there's going to be conversations happening there, as of course Nehemiah on the old hard tyre is trying his hardest to fend off for the next 10 laps on these old hard tyres. That inverse strategy well falling out of his favour. While this is all happening, by the way, obviously those pit stops have happened. Scyther has made that pit stop, but he now falls up to 4 seconds behind Nick as this is all happening. And now that 1-2 that was looking pretty crispy potentially for VSR, for PSR rather, sorry, is now falling potentially to just one person on the podium, with Rusty up into 3rd place, really showing his shine at the moment. Scyther is using up all of his overtake. Rusty doing exactly the same thing and getting the fastest lap of this race. Max has got over 50%, as has Nick. So those front two are really putting a good show at the moment to try and stay within touching distance for a potential couple of laps dash, if you will. Rusty and Scyther are trying to get up and up to speed here, but this is what happens when you committed to the overcut, and it's helped Rusty out committing to the undercut versus Scyther, but the overcut versus the rest of them, and he's having to fight to get back into DRS, and once again, he's going to have to save ERS.
If I was in LX shoes and the PSR man shoes of Skyler at this stage, I'd be wanting to fight these guys for 3rd and 4th rather than 1st and 2nd. I've just had a look at the ERS as Aurelian's on the back of the Maya coming out through the Mistral straight down and towards the chicane. All this should be easy for the Frenchman. He is through and he's into 8th. Nando also getting the move done on M Racer just before the corner. He is through and he's into 5th position. Very nice move there from the OP man. Back to the point that I was originally going to come on to. Rusty there in 3rd. He's got no pace. He's got no ERS either. He is beginning to pull into the gap of a second to Max and Nick, but it is literally going to be for absolutely nothing, because Max has got 59% of ERS, Nick has got 54% of ERS. If Nick and Max do not work together and they put the block out, as Tom has absolutely centered it on Nehemiah through turn 11, by the way, great move from Tom up ahead of Nehemiah. His hold going off, and McCabe Sam and just the inside line as well. The Mercedes tries to pull it off, forces him off track, and they're going to be side by side on re-entry. McCabe Sam should be ahead coming through the corner, and I don't think Nehemiah's going to fight this one. McCabe Sam through and he's into 10. But back to my point, Max and Nick, they can easily push the bottom whenever they need to. Rusty and Skyler, now within a second, is coming back. M-Racer, by the way, coming back on Nando. Still can't get my points across. But Rusty there in 3rd, Skyler in 4th. They are very, very fortunate, is what I will say, to still be in that DRS train. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to save up, 60% of ERS in 9 laps or so. It's just frankly impossible.
Well, we've got WOR commenting himself, I'm presuming that's Luke, saying Talent Factory need to be more tactical as well. Reporting NRX gives more points potentially to PSR, which is a very good point. But I think WOR are speaking on the terms of the stewards, saying please don't send the stewards any more clips. They're going to cry if we get any more than what we've been getting this season, because it has obviously been a very intense season of World Online Racing Legacy Division, and it's still very much all to play for, as we've got plenty of battle happening here, as Nehemiah is trying to defend around the outside on old hard tyres. It's not going to work at all. Relegated to 12th place, as all of those positions that he gained on the softs are now relegating himself down to the back in 12th, with those old hards not working at all for him at the moment with 6 laps to go. I wish that we were on 100% race, because this is brilliant racing so far between all of these drivers, but thus we have only got just a little bit under 8 laps to go. in this race. Nando then is able to really hold on, and this battle between Outplayed Racing and VSR at the moment has been absolutely wonderful to watch. Simba Rocks 1 getting another 3-second time penalty for his troubles. That's for extending track limits one too many times. Outplayed Racing's Nando staying within touching distance, not using his overtake, but keeping within that distance of M Racer. While this is all happening, of course, Scyther and Rusty have now managed to catch up to the top two, but of course they've now got to start harvesting energy and saving energy. Scyther doing that quicker at the moment versus Rusty, which might promote him back up to P3. But of course, if that's all happening, Talent Factory are still going to lead this championship, because Kian has now got himself back into a solid points position of 7th place. So it is all about Scyther having to catch this time back, rather, and they're going to have to think about that long-term strategy here as Shizu Tom has gone for a spin, and he's gone for a spin going through turn 3-4, relegates himself down to 12th. Nehemiah then back up to 11th with Arch in 10th. McCabe Sam for VSR now up to 9th as Orlean still on his own sort of way at the moment in a little bit of a no man's land that's forming with him in 8th place. While this is all happening, by the way, the M-Racer battle between Nando and Kian really starting to open up. Now Kian is going to start thinking about his energy here, because he keeps using overtake. He's down below 10%. If he starts harvesting energy and can stay within DRS of the front two, Talent Factory could be on at least for some good points with him in 5th. But he needs to start thinking about saving energy, and needs to save it quickly as well. He's only got 7 laps to do it.
Yeah, to be honest, he doesn't really need to save any energy, because M-Racer, of course, picked that penalty up coming into the pit lane, and he's there in 5th position, doing a fantastic job, but he has got the 5-second penalty overhanging him. Speaking of penalties, by the way, Archer's on 3 seconds, Yona on 3, Levi on 6, Simba Rocks also on 6, Stokey on 3, Dan Spreen in 19th on 3, and Race Roller down in 20th on 3 seconds worth of time penalties as well. That's the penalties run down at this stage. Nick and Max though leading the way. Misa is saying in the chat as well, potential connection issues for Nick ahead. Now I believe Max was having issues a little bit earlier on joining the first lobby, and then we had to restart the lobby and reset it basically. So it could be more Max's connection than anything else. And if that is the case, then I don't think there is going to be a real stewarding report in all of that. If it is Max's connection, if it's found out to be him, then of course it will go in the way of PSR. But any single point is a big advantage for TF. They might look into that. Nick though leading the way, Max in 2nd, Rusty in 3rd, Skyler there in 4th. Everything now just beginning to settle down for the final concerto, which is going to be coming very soon indeed, as Archer's on the back of the Cape Sam running down the straight, catching very quickly indeed. He's not going to be close enough through the chicane Nord. Rusty now applying pressure to Max. Thomas back ahead, and Nehemiah coming through the right-hander of turn number 9 on the exit of the chicane. And Tom Fooney's into 11th, Nehemiah there in 12th. Nehemiah will try and fight, but he will not, I think, come back into the back of Tom. And Tom there is ahead into 11th, but the front 4 beginning to back each other up. This is going to get quite interesting with 6 laps to go. I
don't know what deodorant you use, but I think Talent Factory are using the political-centred one at the moment, as they try to put Nick under a little bit of pressure here, because, of course, with that, it is known, unfortunately, Nick, for having not a particularly great internet connection, and if that ends up becoming a serious problem, of course, PSR could be in trouble towards the front, especially if it ends up causing a collision. God forbid, I don't want to talk about that again. Nick Max, though, in 2nd place. We're getting a little bit of a tank slapper, though, and ends up track extending at turn 2. That will give him certainly a warning on that occasion. ERS management has been a lot better now between Scyther and Rusty, and now we're starting to see the pressure beginning to form, and Rusty really putting some pressure now on Max as well. Of course, Talent Factory really don't want to lose any points here versus Rusty, but equally they don't want to lose any time really versus PSR here. So, you know, if you were in Talent Factory's position here with Max, and Rusty's putting so much pressure on you that you might lose P2, considering the situation with PSR, would you consider just docking the 3 points that you'd get between 2nd and 3rd place and just letting Rusty have it, in the knowledge that you'll still be in front of the championship despite the loss of 3 points?
Well, I think in the current situation, I mean, Max is on 90% of ERS, so if he does let Rusty through, Rusty's not going to have that counteract balance rate basically out on track. So Skyler as well, and Skyler, speaking of which, is to the inside line of turn number 11. McLaren tries to pull this off. That was a little bit of a cheeky one there from Skyler, just saying, I'm here, do not forget about me. The McLaren there in 4th is on the back, and he has got more ERS slightly there than Rusty in the first half of that. He's now used up a little bit to try and catch back up, coming now through Lack and Pont at 10, 14 and 15. Might look to the inside line. He doesn't. Nick there leads the way. Stokey, by the way, has picked up another 3-second penalty further down the field. I think that might be his first for tonight, if I'm not mistaken. But Nick leading the way, Max in 2nd. Back to the point, yeah, Max 97% of ERS. He's doing a fantastic job. He can let Rusty through if he feels he's quick enough. but to what extent? Because Max is just going to come back at him in another lap's time, so it's pretty much pointless, I think, from that perspective. If I was in Max's shoes, to come back at Rusty and then maybe get found and wanting with Nick in front, pulling away by more than a second.
If Max has nearly got a full battery at the moment, that would tell me he's not pushing. That's just a fact, isn't it? So he's in a situation where he can just manage his own race, wait until the 27th lap, and then just overtake him. And if that ends up being the case, Rusty will be very happy to get in there and potentially put Nick under pressure as well. What he needs to do, though, is that he needs to stay in touching distance with Max in order to get the tow, get the ERS, and potentially get the overtake on that McLaren. And what could have been and what should have been a solid win for PSR could end up being a 3-4 if worse comes to worse for them anyway. We've got 23 of 27, not that many laps to go here, as Scyther is still putting pressure on Rusty. He'll go around the outside, switch back to the inside, and the gap certainly is there, and he's looking for it, you know, and they're going to keep going side by side, but he's going to be off camber, so he can't put the foot down, but he's going to try and go around the outside of 12, switch back then into 12, but then that Aston Martin covers the corner, and again, Scyther keeps putting pressure on Rusty. He knows if Scyther keeps putting pressure on Rusty, Rusty can't keep close to Max, Rusty can't overtake Nick on that 27th lap. Again, still putting pressure on him, so Scyther is thinking about that long-term game, I suspect.
They are indeed, but this is playing absolutely perfectly into the hands of Max. Talent Factory are rubbing their hands at this stage. They'd be wanting, I think, as there's a yellow flag through the middle sector, is that, I think, Simba Rocks, who might have spun, coming through turn at number 9 out of the chicane at Nord. Nick, though, leading the way. As I say, this is playing absolutely perfectly. Skyver, as he picks up the 3-second penalty, pushing way too hard, I think this is just playing perfectly into the hands of Talent Factory. It's almost as if PSR are gifting Talent Factory, I think, with Max, a potential win here, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Nick has got the pace. He's got 79% of ERS. Is he really quick enough in a straight line to outdo Max with a near run up a full battery? Time will only tell. The Ferrari there in second, doing a fantastic job. Rusty's not entirely out of this as well. He has saved up that battery, as Avatar mentioned a little bit early on there in third. He saved up that battery, 40% of ERS. Do not discount him out of it either. But Skyver now, I think, has been told, basically, don't attack Rusty. This battle now is between the front two.
I wouldn't blame, though, if PSR are still telling Scyther, keep attacking Rusty, because if that happens, then if Nick does get overtaken, if Rusty is nowhere near Max, he won't get P2 off of Nick. So it's a little bit topsy-turvy in the decision of what they want to do here. I suspect it'll be the former, as you suggested, James, but if they do decide to go for the latter, though more risky, it may end up paying dividends if Rusty ends up putting pressure on Nick if and when that overtake occurs, going down the Mistral straight. So it's lap 25 of 27. We've got 3 laps to go, including that final lap of lap 27, and in that scenario, Scyther is able to hold on, and his gap is 8.6, by the way, so there's no risk of Scyther losing out on P4, that's for certain, but he's certainly not going to get on the podium with a 3-second penalty for unless one of the 3 drivers in front ends up getting a 3-second penalty, and of course that may end up being a case of an unforced error. I suspect Scyther was trying his hardest to also put Rusty under pressure potentially to get a penalty himself, but of course in doing so he's ended up getting a penalty as Scyther in doing that, so he's obviously going to be now thinking about the long-term prospects here as Max is now starting to put a little bit of pressure on Nick, and Nick is obviously trying to cut off the toe down the straight, but once again the Talent Factory driver electing not to go for the overtake, and I think it is going to be one of those last lap dashes here, and it's all going to be about maintaining one's composure throughout the next few laps.
Yeah, and Max, to be fair, has got a whole host of Xbox guys around him at this stage. Literally 3 out of the top 4 Xbox. Max on the PS, doing us proud. Oh, a big leg spike there coming through the right-hander of turn number 10 once again. Max is on the back of Nick still. Rusty there in third. Skyver just beginning to drop off the back of Rusty. I think his earlier exertions of attacking Rusty is now coming to pay. He might have took the tyres a little bit too hard in terms of that, but with 2 laps to go in this real high-speed game of poker, Nick leading the way, Max in second. If I was in Max's shoes, I have done this on the penultimate lap of the race. If I was in Max's shoes personally, I'd attack him, potentially down the Mistral straight this lap around, and then try and get the gap out for a second if Nick is not quick enough. That is what I think Max has got to do. He is playing a brilliant, brilliant game. This race, honestly, is tense. I'm moving towards the edge of my seat, I think, at this stage. I hope you guys are at home. Nick leading the way, Max in second, Rusty in third. It really concerns the front 3. Scotland now beginning to apply pressure onto the back of Rusty. This, honestly, could really depend and really bring about this change. in terms of the championship. This race could actually decide what might happen further on in Legacy Division.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've just got a little bit over a lap and a half to go then. Nick is trying to close down the gap. He goes into overtake, but I suspect the DRS are going to be shut early, and it certainly was by a fraction of a second. So Max will stay tucked in behind Nick, and again, no surprises on this one. Very short indication suggesting that, you know, PSR were on their way to taking a victory. They've led pretty much every single lap of this race, pardon when the pit stops were occurring, and PSR should be on for a victory tonight, but Max is very happy to swallow any time loss that PSR Nick has currently got, and that is simply just being the driver in front. There's nothing more to it than that. Little bit of a tank slapper. Well caught from Max. He's pushing a gap against Rusty as well, which is allowing Scyther to potentially put pressure on that NRX Aston Martin. As we're just about to start the lap, this last lap of this race, James, early indications suggesting Max surely is the favourite, despite the fact that he hasn't led a single lap of this race. As we go on to that final front straight. Oh, that's a little bit of a slapper though from Nick.
It is, and Rusty as well made a slight mistake in behind. He's caught on the back foot, running down the straight once again in towards turn 1. Max though coming on the back of Nick in towards turn 1. The Talent Factory man all over the Paradox Sim Racing man in P1 at this stage. Max with 56% of ERS. Nick's on 51. He can fight this potentially in towards the Mistral Straight, in towards the chicane Nord at turns 8 and 9. This is now literally make or break for Max. He's got to try and get a good run. Coming out of turn number 6, outside curb, just caught him out slightly, and now puts him on the back foot and has a huge slide again. That is it, I think. Nick has got the momentum running down the straight. Max is still going to try and come within his ERS range. Rusty and Sky, there's still not to be determined out of this battle either. Nick, though, through the middle sector, now through the chicane node, has got to apply the pressure coming up towards turn number 10. This race is going to be decided in the final 6 corners. Nick leading the way, Max in second. Nando makes the move as well in towards the chicane node and gets the job done for OP up to 5th. Max, though, on the back of Nick.
Looking for it.
On turn number 10. He thinks to go for the move. Ferrari, though, absolutely shuts the door of the McLaren on him. And Max, in the end, cannot find a way through. He's going to have to try it into the final 2 corners.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be looking for it. It's been really good racing between the pair of them, and Nick shut the door firmly, saying this has been my race victory from the start, and I am going to hold on to it, he says, with Levi getting a 3-second penalty for his troubles again. That brings up to 9 down in 15th. We go into that final corner. Scyther puts the pressure on the Aston Martin NRX driver of Rusty, but in the end, it's going to fall all in favour for PSR as they take their 3rd win in a row, with PSR Nick leading the way from Max, from Rusty, from Scyther, and in the end that penalty nay mattered. OP Nando will finish in 5th place. Penalties may apply though for M Racer as he comes across the line now. M Racer will sink down the standings with a 5-second unserved penalty down to 8th, and then 9th place with McCabe Sam finishing in that position. And in the end, Orlean for Shazoo will finish in 7th place. Kian will finish in 6th in what I believe to mean that Talent Factory will still hold on, but by a very small margin versus PSR going into the next race next week. Jonah in the end for Juventus Racing will finish in 13th place, with Outplayed Racing's Ray finishing in 14th, and what a disappointing final race it will be for NRX Levi, who takes out the DRS sign, I think, in frustration in the end, and will finish in a very lowly 15th place for the Aston Martin. Simbarox 1, it's just a race of what-ifs, really, for him, unfortunately. 16th will be where he finishes with 9 seconds worth of penalties, I believe, on his name. FRA Stokey still racing at the moment with Dan Spreen on a fresh set of soft tyres, so he's actually going for the fastest lap here, so it's all going to be about whether he does get that fastest lap, and it will be 17th place with that fastest lap as well. With the Red Bull now coming across that straight, Dan Spreen will finish in 18th pending penalties, as the Red Bull will come across the line right now, and it does take the fastest lap of the race for TV18. He'll finish in 18th place after penalties, and then Teen will finish in 19th place, with Race Roller rounding out a 0 DNF race at France tonight in 20th place. All the drivers finished. Huzzah!
Absolutely fantastic. I've got to credit Nick, though, to be put under that amount of pressure and to still win that race with literally giving your all takes phenomenal work. The PSR man did absolutely brilliantly. Max, in the end, if he got a better run coming out of turn number 6 and turn number 7, he would have had him down the straight for sure. He had the pace down the straight. In the end, Max comes up short. Talent Factory should be very proud, though, of his performance. I'm very proud of his performance there as well. He did the PS lot. Very, very proud indeed. But in the end, the top step of the podium goes, of course, to PSR Nick. And it's not a PSR 1-2, as they might imagined at the start of this race. Skyler in the end finishing in fourth with that 3-second penalty, but doing the walk like an Egyptian to the top step of the podium. PSR Nick takes the race win, and PSR shows even more on Talent Factory going into the next week.
Absolutely, but PSR will be asking the question of strategy, because the strategy call was not at their best. To say the least, for Scythe, who ends up finishing in fourth place, of course, pitting a lot later than everyone else, and that overcut really harmed any chance of him being able to get that podium, although the 3-second penalty, of course, on his name will have not helped in that scenario. Talent Factory at least get a podium in that one, but what a great recovery drive from Kian, though, to be fair, to get back up into the position that he did, and Talent Factory able to at least hold on to the championship lead, if my maths is correct. In 6th place, Kian will finish, with Nando finishing in 5th place. A great race for Outplayed Racing with Nando, actually, and it's exactly what they need, with Ray unfortunately getting a lowly 14th. In all of that, by the way, towards the back, Orlean in 7th, with McCabe, Sam and M Racer in 8th and 9th. VSR again not able to get the big points that they're looking for, but they are at least well in front of Nexus tonight, despite the fact Nexus Rusty getting at that 3rd place. In the end, then, towards outside of the top 10, FRA Arch, of course, finishing in the 11th place. Neymar in 12th, then 13th for Jonah, 14th for Ray. Levi finishing in 15th, with Simba Rocks 1 in 16th. Dan Spreen in 17th, Stokey in 18th, and we've got Tidjin in 19th, and then Race Roller in 20th, rounding out all of the drivers to actually finish the race tonight. We didn't get a single DNF, and everyone wasn't at least lapped in this race. What a race it was, indeed. We've had a very, very good race indeed, and what I think is going to be a great performance for all of these drivers that are looking forward to another exciting round of WOR Legacy Division as we move on from the French Grand Prix to the next Grand Prix in Austria. In fact, it won't be Austria. I'll try and figure out exactly where we're going to be. It's Italy, actually, I think, for that matter. For some reason, I thought it was February, would you believe, James? But it's not. It's March, isn't it? We're in Italy next week in what I think is going to be an exciting race at Monza. But for myself, from James, and for the rest of the team here at WOR, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.